All right, good morning, guys. Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Mr. Warren's Video Econ Lessons. So, should just finish up your do now for the day. In your own opinion, what factors might make it difficult for different countries to trade with one another? So, it's a pretty general question. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could have gone along with this. Some people say, oh, trade agreements. Some say taxes. Some say tariffs. Things that get in the way, things that can make it very difficult. Or simply something that's like transportation issues, just getting it from one place to another easily. Other things might include different laws. So, for example, if you have certain customs laws that prevent, you can't bring anything in under certain situations, like, hey, I have to wait like 3 days for it to sit there to make sure it's safe, to make sure there's nothing coming across. And just there's lots of factors that could go into it that can kind of get in the way. Governments clashing heads end up hurting their country's businesses. So make sure you have 4 sentences, make sure you get turned into the white binder. And today we're going to continue on this idea of a global economy. We're going to continue this whole trying to look at everything from a more macro perspective and trying to look at everything in terms of world trade as opposed to trade between just one business and another business or within just the United States by itself. So, marker, do I got one? There we go. So, first thing we're going to touch on today is something called trade barrier. So, essentially what we just discussed with the do now. A trade barrier is a government imposed, or like government forced, restraint on international trade. So just kind of like our do not question, it's very broad. So essentially just anything that gets in the way of trade process from country to country. Big ones you hear in the news nowadays are the sanctions that we have against North Korea. Different things say, hey, you can't trade this, hey, you can only trade this, hey, you can only ship so much of this. Just literally just any way the government steps in and interferes with the free market process. Next up, another one you might have heard in recent times, them trying to bring back that they used to have, but not so much anymore. Something known as a tariff, or just quite simply a tax on imported goods. So, tariffs are usually popular for the reason that they help protect domestic businesses. So, for example, let's say Coca-Cola. Say Coca-Cola just has plants here in the United States. They employ American workers, and they just work here. I know they don't, but let's just say they do. So, a tariff would be like an extra tax on the the French version of Coca-Cola. So, same product, except maybe the French are selling it much cheaper than Coca-Cola can here. So a tariff would be put on their pot to make their prices higher. So if their prices are higher, going back to our basic concepts of economics, if I have a lower price local good and a higher price foreign good, chances are I'm going to pick the local good to buy instead of the foreign one. Simply because it's probably cheaper, it's easier to get. And so the idea behind this is because of the tariff and because it increased the price of the foreign good, it's protecting the work that's here. It's protecting the jobs of the people working in the United States. It's protecting American-made products. And so it just doesn't have to be in the United States, but that's just the example we're just going to talk about. So at the end of the day, the goal is to protect domestic jobs here, and keep businesses here. Next up, I think I already said it's actually before when I was talking trade barriers, the term sanction, or sanctions with an S, which are a threatened penalty for disobeying a law or rule. So, once again, a threatened penalty for disobeying a law or rule. So the big ones in the news nowadays are the sanctions we're placing on North Korea. So the whole reason we're doing that is because, hey, they're doing something we don't like, they're doing something the UN doesn't like. And so because they're doing that, we're imposing sanctions, meaning, okay, fine. If you're going to break the rules, if you're going to break the agreements, now here's your penalty. And so we might say, hey, okay, if you break this rule, we're not going to sell you coal, or we're not going to sell you bananas, or whatever the resource is. Saying, okay, you broke the rule, now you're paying the consequence for that. You're not playing ball with us, you're not trying to get along, well, guess what? Now we're not going to help you out. You are suffering some kind of penalty for this. So I'll step out of the way for just a second. If you need to hit pause to get the notes copied down, feel free. And then go ahead and hit pause anyway. There should be a quick YouTube clip attached to the notes. And then we'll continue in just a moment. All right, so last term we're going to cover, it's not as a big thing anymore, but it was about 50 years ago, and I guess it is still today, but not as bad. Something known as an embargo. And this is an official ban on trade with a particular country. So an official ban on the trade with a particular country. So the big example for the United States is our embargo of Cuba, which was put in place, roughly 50 years ago, give or take, and continued up into modern times where it was illegal to buy things from Cuba, and then vice versa. So we cut off all trade with them. So the idea behind this usually is for political reasons. The purpose behind it is usually for political reasons. Hey, fine, we're not going to trade with you, and because the idea is you're going to lose so much money and you're going to suffer because of lack of trade, that you will essentially work with us, that you will agree to follow our rules and our way of doing things. But for the longest time, and it is clearly, at least in this example, just did not work. Cuba just kept on going, and they still existed despite not being able to trade with us. So make sure you have all it written down in your notes and your exit slip. In your own words, explain what a tariff is and the purpose behind creating them. So obviously you just have the definition already. So obviously you're going to put it in your own words, and what is the purpose of them? So I just kind of talked about that. So once again, I need all in your own words. What is your takeaway what is your takeaway from the term tariff? Like, what is your own interpretation of it? So make sure you get 4 sentences on that. Make sure you get it turned in. I'll see you guys for the next lesson.